Yeah, then you try to remember that everything that you get away with now, oh, you got to wash your ass. I ain't talking about your whole ass. I'm talking about your asshole. Oh yeah, my mother got me that on 8 track.
That's so great. There was this record shop that I would go to in Scarborough all the time. It was like in this weird little plaza.
Okay.
And I asked him like, "Do you have any comedy records?" And he's like, "Yeah, underneath the pop albums." And they were in like a little milk crate down on the floor,
Yeah.
pushed underneath. There's probably about like 20 Cosby records for $2 at the
I
beginning.
had a friend that had over 400 different comedy albums. He had
Oh,
everybody.
it's crazy. It's just
Yeah.
such an interesting way to like consume comedy because we're so used to now seeing just like clips or crowd work things, and that's like the new way that we consume comedy. And one of the big reasons why I wanted to have you on the show too is to talk about this new documentary of yours, People of Comedy, because it's a really cool way to like if someone's never been to a Nubian show, probably because they couldn't get tickets, it's always sold out. This gives them that experience, but it also adds so many layers of, listening to
Mhm.
the comics in between even their sets. Was that like a creative choice from you, or was that something the documentary wanted to
The
do?
producers and the directors, they all had a vision, and
Hmm.
I had, I knew what I wanted to say and do and be a part of and what have you. So it's a little bit of a hodgepodge that made it all come together.
Nice.
It's like when they're doing the interviews, I didn't want to be around the comics and they're being interviewed. I didn't want to be a fly on the wall. It's
Because you just be like, that's not true.
well, it's too much like when was it Tom Sawyer or Huck Finn that watched his own funeral?
Oh, I don't
Yeah,
remember.
and people say, "Well, what's it like?" And I go, "Well, it's like attending your own celebration of life," and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
like sometimes I said, "What I said that." So but I mean, it's 30 years of of the history of the show, and I had another 15 years of doing 12, 15 years of doing stand up before that.
Wow.
So I started out in 76. I quit my day job in 84, and the Nubians came in 95. So
Wow.
it's been a long, like you were saying, how funny it is to think of albums. When I first heard Richard Pryor's "That Nigga's Crazy," all he had was albums,
Yeah,
so he
yeah.
had no idea of the physical stuff that the audience was dying to. He had to
Right.
imagine it.
Yeah, because you're just sitting there listening to it. So you're having to make everything up in your own head. But I think as comics, that's really important is to just like listen to the words. Like your comedy should be funny in all three of those live without even seeing you or with seeing you. Like I find some comedians may lean too hard on the physical stuff, so it doesn't translate on a
But
record if they
Pryor
were to do a
was a
record.
physical
Yeah.
genius,
Yeah.
you know. So he threw his entire body into it, So that was that with him. Whereas guys like Fox and Dick Gregory, they're really more along the monologue, and they weren't very physical. Pryor ran, he laid on the floor, he crawled, he fell down, he tiptoed, he did all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Like you're very methodical and like observant and make incredible points in your comedy from a point of just standing behind the mic. How long was it until you found your not lane, but like how you
I'm
wanted
still
to
looking
be
for it.
perceived? You're still looking for it.
I'm
Okay,
still
interesting.
looking for it because now,
See,
you know, I'm
okay.
I'm not the comic I was when I was 30
Right.
years old, and I'm not the comic I was when I was 50, and so and now I've got offers of a new album and a new special, and I'm going, well, it'll have to be 9 months to a year away because I don't have anything of quality that hasn't been shoot up with albums or
Right.
or with other specials that I've taped that we're ready to go with. So the next bulge of the material I go with has got to be about, we ain't 51.
Right.
you know so and Trump and how Canada and America will never be the same, and I've got dual citizenship, so
Oh, nice.
I've got a flag that they gave my mother when my kid brother died because he was in the U.S. Navy. He
Wow.
didn't die in combat,
Oh,
but
okay.
that was good, but you still, when you're, if you're U.S. military, when you die they give you a tri-folded flag, and I bought the frame at Target for $16. So, I've got this American flag that would have been on his coffin up on a shelf. Same time, I'm trying to convince my son that he doesn't want to join the Canadian Army. And and if it ever came to the point where where they had to do a draft, we both had the same name, so I would go and try and take his position, like they did in the Civil War. And they'll say, "Sir, I don't believe you're born in 1989, 1999." I go, "Sure," and they'll say, "No." So,
You should do like a Canadian mash.
well, it's like a lot of people don't know that they created the Geneva Convention because the Canadian soldiers in World War II were such animals.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
whole
that's
story with
unknown.
the
They never
soup
taught us that.
cans.
Yeah, they say here's some soup, and they're going high, and then next thing you know, they're exploding and all kinds of other stuff.
That's
And
sadistic. For people that don't know, the Canadians would the war would be going on for so long that often food rations wouldn't arrive. So a lot of these soldiers were starving. So the Canadians started throwing soup cans over the trenches to the other sides, and these soldiers are starving, so they're just grabbing the food and eating it. Now they get trained almost and used to seeing when they see a soup can, they run towards it because it's food. And these sick fucks were sticking grenades into the empty soup cans and whipping them over, and these guys are running to their death.
yeah,
Like, that is messed up. We do
it's
not get taught that in school at all.
no, it's like that's the Canadians have given more habitat. Boom, so
When you do shoot another special though, you have to film it like get the guys that did this documentary because that opening scene of you getting introduced and then walking out and the black and white in that club looks incredible. You couldn't.
that was Anton Leo. He was that was his vision to shoot the performances in black and white and all the interviews or the B-sides in color. So
It works so well.
yes, definitely the next time there are Canadian Film Awards, I imagine he should have a couple of nominations for this and other
Oh,
stuff he's done. But
yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
incredible work. The director is incredible, so yeah, it's solid all the way around.
What I want to know too is you start this first Nubian night, and I think you said in the documentary that it was like sold out
Yeah,
the first show. What was that
it was.
response like? Because you have a night, I know the feeling of having an idea and you think it's a great idea, but until you see it through, until you execute on that idea, you don't know the potential of it.
I thought maybe we'd get 50 people. And my biggest concern was nobody really had more than 7 minutes, so I had to put more comics on to make it
Oh,
a longer evening to having because usually most shows you had your MC did maybe 25 minutes, you had your middle act who did 30, and your headliner would do 45 to an hour. So I'm going, man, that's 90 minutes. So how are you going? So now that the Nubian shows usually run 2 hours plus.
incredible.
We've hit three a few times. Though this one coming up, I imagine will be more than 2.5 because
Wow.
I just got a call from Ron Jaw, so he's going to be in town. Can I pop into his set? Absolutely. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Crave, add as many legends as you can to the lineup, and then it's guaranteed to be a good show no matter how long. You look
yeah,
at
well,
those
it's always
shows at
going
the
to be a good
Comedy
show
Store.
because it's so hard to get onto it.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's what I mean. That exclusivity of it is what makes it, I think, even appealing to an audience, even an audience that doesn't know per se like the mechanics or politics of a comedy scene or an art scene. They still can tell that like the quality of your show has been all the way across. So, what do you look for in a comic that you go, yes, this person
We're
could be
back.
on the show?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, like a couple of months ago, there was a comic in from England, and he had sold out his own show, and he'd heard about the Nubian and what have you, and he rushed down after his show to catch the end of it, and then I was able to throw him on for 10 minutes after the headliner. So it's one of these shows where the reputation is worldwide.
Hmm.
It's funny. There's been American comics I haven't heard from in 20, 25 years. And before this special aired, they were starting to reach out, like, can I get on? Can I get on? And, it's kind of like, well, we're booked and it's elbows up. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah,
really thinking
yeah.
about American comics right now, even the ones I love, elbows
Yeah.
up, baby. So, that's how we're rolling these days.
Yeah. And if you see like a newer comic in the scene that is wanting to get on the show, what do you look for in that comic where you go like, okay, you're ready for the for the Nubian night?
Sometimes I'll put a comic on that's not ready,
Ah, okay.
so
Just
they can
to
get,
let them see how they do in that moment of pressure.
yeah, experiment with it, or they get,
Yeah, of
just to give them a taste of it. But I mean, there's no shortage of cooks wanting to do the show. I have
course.
this
That's what I
one
mean.
comic going, when can I get on the show? And I'm going, when about 400 other comics before you.
Yeah.
And I each show I build a chemistry. I have to, I got to have my solid, my qualified, no doubt killers,
Yeah.
right? Then I got to have comics that haven't been on for a while. Then I got to have the new ones I'm giving a chance to. Then I got to give the ones that bombed, but got to see if, then there's out of
Yeah.
towners. I usually try to give the out of towners priority. And them trying to say, like, okay, where are the females? Am I pushing the women comics enough? I find the women comics these days are more interesting than a lot of the males, because the women are talking politics, talking race, talking misogyny, sexism, whereas a lot of the males are just talking about, I ate some ass. Well, good, we all did. Then when a female comic says I ate some ass, I'm like, whoa, okay, there's a different bedtime story to tell, folks.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
there's always so many different things to put into it.
Yeah. That is the like fun but also tough part about curating a show is like
Absolutely.
adding all those elements. And then your inbox, I can't even imagine. You probably don't even open your email inbox for the amount of requests that you get of people trying to get on the show.
Well, sometimes I do, and sometimes I say I'll get back to you,
Yeah.
and then I'll see like 6 months later, oh, you never got back to them. I said, you're an asshole. And I said, well, it wasn't like you. So then I try to make up to him and said, I'm going to put you on sooner than later. And then
Yeah.
3 months later, he goes, is it sooner yet? I go, no, it's still later. So,
There you go.
so it's tough, but also on Monday nights I run comedy workshops at a different book list,
Cool.
that's at Bathurst and Bloor. It's also known as the Blackhurst Cultural Center. And lately I've been picking comics out of my workshops to put on. So some of my comics get moved up on the
Okay.
workshop.
Yeah,
And they'll go,
yeah.
but I've been doing open mics for 7 years. I go, yeah. But this kid I've seen him grow and I've seen him develop, and I'm betting $2 on him.
Right.
This is my horse now.
Yeah. And you know someone that you've at least seen their progress, you can trust them way more with that
Not
spot.
always.
You don't think
Sometimes they'll
so?
get in front of that crowd and just, forget everything that we've worked on, forget everything they did,
Yeah.
with purpose. Another thing I have a hard time is getting the comics to have passion about their performances.
Hmm.
A comic will show up and they've got their phone out, or their notes, and I say, "Shut that phone!" No, no, no. I go, if you can't be bothered to remember your act, why should the audience make the effort to listen to you?
Very powerful advice.
You don't
It's
need
your
to look at
act.
this stuff. It's your act. It's your head. It's your heart. This is what
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
coming
yeah.
from.
I hope you
And the thing I
remember
try to
you
push
wrote
to the
it.
comics is your joke can be stolen, but your opinion, your point of view, your experiences can never be stolen.
Yeah.
So go from that point, build from there.
I did an opening spot for Sterling Scott when he was in Ottawa at
Okay.
like the Orleans. And one thing he said was like he's like, I like that you did personal stories. Like I talked about personal things. And it's for exactly that reason because there's no way like I remember I was at Absolute Comedy and I didn't go into the green room. I had just like got there and went right on the stage. And then when I came back to the green room, one of the comics was like, there was some guy out there telling your jokes.
Uh,
And I was like, that was me. And he's like, "Oh, okay. I just heard the material." And he goes, "That's a Johnny Rogers bit." And it's like, it's because it's a personal story to me.
that, and he's not familiar with your voice yet.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like good that that stood out though, that someone was like, "Oh, I can
It's
easily
funny. Sterling's
identify."
first real time on the road was with me. We went
Wow.
to Fort St. John, BC. We played, and 5 6 hours on the Trans Canada Highway, and we telling them road stories and what have you. And So yeah, but Sterling's done quite well. I'm quite proud of he's like, there's 15, 20 comics that I could have had, or should have had, wish I could have had on this show, but we had 10 spots plus Russell.
Mm,
So Sterling, he was out at seas working cruise ships, so he wasn't available. But I mean,
damn.
that's another talent, another bat in the lineup that didn't get the swing, and as you could tell, there's no shortage of
Yeah.
runs produced.
He actually, when he was on this podcast, he talked about doing your show
Hmm.
and how he was like, I had all this material planned, and then somebody else did a joke that was like similar to what I was going to talk about, and I just went, fuck it, and I threw it all to the side. He throws all his material aside right before he goes on stage. He goes, I'm just going to talk about how I'm 40 now. And everything was like, I'm 40. And it just kept getting this big laugh, and he just kept repeating the same thing after everything and just freestyled the set. And he said it was one
But
of the
not
like,
every comic can do it.
oh
Sterling made
no,
it look
no,
easy.
yeah. He made it look easy because he's like I can actually trust that what I say is funny and I
Hmm.
can just talk about something and it is one of those things where it has to be like right place, right time, right. There's like a certain vibe in a room where you can get on the crowd's like wavelength and you could say anything at that moment and they're gonna laugh with you.
And there's other nights where nothing you say is
And there's
gonna
nights where you're just throwing your greatest hits and they're just getting nothing. I got humbled so hard at Toronto Yuck Yucks on like an amateur night. I got like a lotto spot and I
okay.
had been having a good week of shows. I had been just like doing really well. And I turned in fatal mistake. I turned to the comic beside me and I was like, watch this. This is gonna be great. And I
Ah, the
just went
comedy
up
gods, the comedy gods give you a
humbled,
smack to teach you about
humbled,
arrogance.
humbled so hard. I was
Like,
like, oh
oh, he
man.
he thinks he has this master, does he?
Yeah. Oh my God. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever like been like rocking where you're like, oh man, I'm
Oh,
having
you
like
could
a
do
good
one
set of
joke, use
weeks?
one word, and lose the crowd.
Yeah, yeah.
You could wreck everything with one line. If you open up with a wrong joke, you're behind the eight ball, and you never get to get in front again.
Yeah. What's a way that you usually try to like reverse yourself out of a situation like that? Do you turn to crowd work? Do you try to address it right
I think
away?
if you turn to crowd work, they could smell the desperation
Mm.
coming out of your pores.
Okay.
Like there used to be a joke of the comic bombing. So what do you guys want to talk about? Well, something that you prepared, something with punchlines, something of interest, something
Tell a
of
joke.
wit and intelligence, maybe.
Yeah.
So, I unless it's a huge show, like a booked in a regular club, I like to do a standard opening line that I'll use that I know gets the audience on my side. But if I don't use that line, then and I like to do the newer material at the top. That way, I know that I can still got stuff that's tried and true to fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, if I'm doing political humor off the top, I can tell the audience is bored and not interested, and I'll go, "Okay, I see what you want." And then I'll throw out this line that I usually use when I open, and it's filthy, and they howl, and
Okay.
then I'm
Yeah,
then I'm mad at me
yeah.
because I gave it to them.
You're right, right. You
You
gave
know,
in to their like pressure instead of
I'm not
pushing
mad
it
at them for
through.
liking it because I wrote it. I wrote it for them to
Right,
like
right.
it.
Yeah.
But you son of a bitch, you didn't get that other stuff across like you needed to, like you wanted to, like you were so excited.
Right. So
And the
you
easiest things comics
reflect
go,
it.
it's over their head. It's over their head.
Yeah.
Well, I said, would you ever play baseball? Okay. Well, if you're playing first and the shortstop throws the ball over your head, it's over your head. Who threw the ball? So when I hear comics go, oh, it's all over their head. Well, you threw it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, who threw it is a great response to
Yeah.
that. It's so true. You just need to like reflect on those bits and go, okay, I'm just not making it interesting enough for them. That's it. Or I'm not like finding a way to connect
You
on
didn't
a
set it
level
up
where they
properly.
want to listen to it. Yeah.
Or the energy in the room. Like somebody was saying on a Facebook page how they used to love me until I attacked uh, the brave people that didn't want to listen to the tyranny of the government. So I'm going, oh, so you're anti-vaxxer, pro-trucker, and I remember that show. And my attitude was, no, I didn't see the truckers as courageous. I seen them as anti-government with American and other financing behind them, and I didn't see them as fighting for their freedom. I saw them as being selfish cocksuckers that had no regard for anybody else's safety or well-being. So to him, I was attacking their courage, and
Yeah.
you're supposed to punch. You're supposed to punch towards the powers. And I'm going, well, except in this room of anti-vaxxers, then you guys are definitely the powers, and I am punching against you.
Yeah. Yeah, very
So then,
true.
so I responded to him that, well, you never loved me anyway. because so that's a couple of anti-trucker jokes don't work, or you didn't
Yeah.
like it, then you no longer love me, then you didn't really love me.
Uh, that was the brilliance of watching Ron James is he did a joke that I think was like an anti-Trump joke, and this guy off to the side was like, "Ooh," like he made like a noise, and then so Ron quickly then right after made a Biden joke, and the guy laughed, and he said, "Oh, okay, so that one's fine," but the other one was like an
Mhm.
attack on you for some reason.
One time in Niagara Falls, I had people walking out that were Americans because I was pro Obama. What am I going to do? I'm going to be anti Obama,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they're leaving, and I'm saying, well, too bad you didn't stay. I said, hate the comedy, stay for the free health care. So then one of the guys I could hear when the door to the lobby was open, he was complaining to the manager of the club. I've never heard anything so liberal in my entire life. And I'm thinking how many times I've emptied rooms for being filthy, for being obscene, for being profane, for being offensive. And now this guy's walking out because I'm liberal?
Yeah.
I said, where's the press for this?
Yeah.
Are you going to get me canceled for being
You're
liberal?
you're a
I'm
liberal
ready to take that
edgelord.
cancellation.
He's talking
But there's
about
a
radical concepts like free healthcare and
yeah,
you filthy man.
so
Uh,
he's
he's
preaching
dangerous.
socialism. I say, well, go across,
Uh,
go
that's what
back
you
across
should.
the bridge where Denny's has your grits, buddy.
Yeah, you should put the poster in front of every Kenny Robinson show should be like triple X-rated liberal comedy.
Oh well, they've done the triple X rated, and I think I
No,
used
but
to be
just
kind of
add liberal there.
well, except for not, a lot of my stuff is progressive, and some of it isn't so progressive.
Because you're a
So the
comic.
first, like I was explaining to my workshop the other day, I said you cannot worry about being canceled, and I said, and if somebody says that's offensive, so what? That's racist. And when Chris Christopherson first released me and Bobby McGee, he said, if it sounds country, that's what it is. It's a country song. So if somebody says that's a misogynist joke, I'm not going to argue with them. They felt it was misogynist. I'm going
Hmm.
to say, well, if it sounds misogynist, then I guess that's what it is. Well, that's racist. Well, I guess I guess that's what it is, man.
Yeah,
That's how you found it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I could explain to you my point of view. I could try. Some of my best friends are Czechoslovakians. I mean, you can come up with any of that kind of stuff. And because
It's
I was
all
trying
gonna
to
fall
explain
on
to the
deaf
comics,
ears.
don't
Yeah.
apologize. Just make sure that anything you say is something that you believe in, that you're not just reaching for low hanging fruit, and that that you will die on that hill for. But don't apologize.
Hmm.
Once I had somebody in South Africa, a guy was saying you offended my wife and you offended this and that. So I just said, I'm sorry. I just said sorry if you were offended.
Yeah, there you
And
go.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry she
yeah.
was offended.
I'm sorry she took it that way.
And then I talked to the guy's brothers, and then I got an idea why him and his wife were offended. I did this joke, and then the brothers go, "Oh yeah, my sister-in-law and brother. Once you did that one joke, my they didn't like you at all because my brother used to be a notorious homosexual." So I started laughing because it went, "What's in
Notorious.
the?" I said, "Well, is that anything like Notorious B.I.G.? I'm Notorious F.A.G. I mean,
Yeah,
how do you become a notorious
yeah.
homosexual? You break into people's homes and decorate while they're not home." But that
He's
but that was just a phrase.
notorious.
And I said they had issues with their marriage before I walked in,
Yes.
before I was introduced. and just the fact that the one guy said notorious homosexual, I've never
Oh,
heard that.
that's so
Maybe in some
funny.
literature with Peter O'Toole reading,
Hearing that in
but
a
I mean,
South African accent too would have been so funny.
oh yeah, and they had been buying me drinks, and they had all everybody there had done service in the South African military when they were trying to keep apartheid in line.
Oh,
And I offended people every night, and I felt bad because I wanted to come back. And I said, it's okay if you don't like me. I know freedom of speech is kind of different to some of you because one man, one vote is a relatively new concept to you folks. So,
just roasting them through their search for an apology. Um,
yeah.
I was gonna
Anyhow,
ask you if you could bring back any performer, dead or alive, and get them to do a guest spot on the Nubian Show, who's like your dream get?
oh, there's, well, Pryor to have to be the guy.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to,
Yeah,
right?
and if not Pryor, well, depends. One side of me may want to say, well, y'all need to listen to some Dick Gregory. And then I've had the pleasure of working with Paul Mooney a few times.
Ah, wow.
So, Mooney may, could be that. So, I mean, those are three. Um, for the sake of wokeness and intolerance and easily offended, Kinnison would be somebody. When Kennison popped open big, it was the same time when all the club owners and bookers are telling me, you got to tone it down, you got to tone it down. And here came
Mm,
this guy that was not toned down. And then, so, for a while, I was like following in that, he was like leading the band. And then years later, George Carlin said that Kennison, his rise, relit the fire under his ass. He
wow.
said, I had a drug problem for most of the 70s, couple of heart attacks in the 80s. And I was just, was happy that we said when Cheech and Chong are ridiculing him for the material he was doing, he's doing stuff about soup. And then, Kinnison came out and
Yeah.
spoke the unspeakables. Well, and then Carlin he was a bull in a china shop for the rest of his days.
Oh my God, yeah. Those later Carlin albums are just like
The HBO
unbelievable.
specials.
Oh,
Yeah.
the HBO specials were just so like influential too, of just like into my politics to just like the love of language that he had to be able to build these bits. Even his older bit of like he did 5 minutes just on stuff. And it's one of my favorite
Mhm.
things ever, but like his breakdown of the Ten Commandments, and all of that is in addition to like the seven bad words you can't say on TV, which was like his clear, breakthrough
That
point.
may have been his heartbreak hotel as far as hits go. But when he was talking about it isn't the word, it's the context.
Right.
This is like, he says the N word. Shouldn't say it, bad word. But when black guys say it, you don't mind. You know why? Because they're niggers. And he said, but hey, I'm the blue-eyed white devil, the blue-eyed white devil, but I'm the blonde-haired, blue-eyed white devil. But hey, I'm cool with that. so,
Yeah.
so he, that was just his approach with it. So he just said
Yeah, yeah.
everything there.
Oh my God. I love too the one where he was talking about where um he's like the God made a special list of 10 things he does not want you to do. And if you do any of those 10 things, he made a special place for you where you can burn and rot in hell for the rest of eternity
Well, he had
while
a
you
real issue with
scream
his
and cry.
Catholicism.
Yeah. And
Yes, I
then
mean,
he
if you
just
ever got a
goes,
chance to read any of the books that basically were just his albums
yeah.
or his specials printed out, which is great. You
So,
can just read the way it is.
yeah.
I always try to tell the comics pick those up because basically you're reading his special,
Yeah,
and if you want to see how to
unbelievable.
write something, that's how it is.
Yeah. To take he would always apparently he would always like write out his full HBO special and then he'd smoke a joint and go back and punch it up.
And edit, take all
And
the
edit
fat
it.
out.
Yeah, yeah, and take all the fat out. How do you like do you feel like you have a good barometer right now for your jokes where you're like the way they come out usually are the way that they stay for your bits, or do you find yourself still having to like parse things down
Oh,
through,
always,
through
always,
sets.
always, because just the use of one word can change something. Like there's one woman in my workshop, and she was talking about being a Muslim. She went to a mosque, and they said, "Well, the prayer room for women are over there." And she goes, "You go in the dungeon, and there is a bunch of rocks there to punish you." And I go, "Stones.
Yeah.
Change it from rocks to stones, because
Mm,
they get stoned to death. They never get
right,
rocked to
right,
death."
right, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
stones right away, when you say rocks, are they smoking crack? And no, when you say
yeah.
stones in the right way, stoned to death, and the whole execution so right away, stones is a better word than rocks. And and you see that, and you go big. Or like I tell young comics, tape your sets, but don't be listening to where the audience is loving you. Listen to where they don't.
Yeah.
Listen to where the silence is. Ask yourself, why is there silence? Did this bit maybe belong later in your show, earlier in your show? Maybe it doesn't belong in your show at all.
Yeah, that's truly the best way to like pick out those moments, like you're saying, of rocks or stones versus rocks, of just hearing the way that the audience reacts to it. Like I'll notice that in whenever I see that in a comic where they said one thing and then the audience kind of responded weird, you can almost tell that the comic is so like getting into their next bit that they're not fully in the moment and recognizing that there was that miscommunication because it's like in their head they understand what they're talking about.
Well, because you
So
always got to think 2 bits ahead so you know where
y-
you are.
exactly, right? So it's always super helpful when other comics do stuff like that of saying like, "Hey, just change
Because there's
this word to
nothing
this
worse than,
word."
so where was I? Or what was I going to say?
Oh.
Or, so let's see, what else?
What else is such a
That's not
such a
that's not
killer?
a smooth. That's not your late show television bit.
No,
That's not your
no.
showcase set, kid.
Unless you made something in the set to lead into that or something.
Well, your segue better
Yeah.
flow.
Yeah, of course.
If your segue doesn't flow, then you got more problems.
Yeah, yeah. They need to go evenly together. There's nothing worse than seeing like a hard transition between bits. It should feel like one fluid
Yeah,
piece.
if it's disjointed or if it's scrambled,
Yeah.
terrible.
Was there a particular part of People of Comedy that made you feel like reflective or emotional about?
All of it, none of it. I mean,
None
I
of
mean,
it.
Crystal and Marlito hugging each other when he was talking about his mom dying, but it's life. The show goes on,
Mhm.
and that they were very lucky they captured that minute. I mean, there's been 30 years. In the 30 years since the show started, I've had several girlfriends die. I've had almost all my friends die. My brothers died. My aunt who raised me died. My mother, who I loved and raised me, died. So there's a lot of deaths between the first show and then the show you're doing tonight.
Yeah. A lot of
And
show must go on in that
the
way
show
too.
must go
Like,
on.
God,
And when
Kenny.
I'm gone, someone else is going to step up. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to
Yeah.
MP. It's sad. It's like there's comics on the Toronto scene that were really big. Like Gary David was a big influence. There are 2, 3 generations of comics have never heard Gary David. Gary David was one of the last of the strip club comics that played in Toronto, and then he made
Wow.
the transition from strip clubs to comedy clubs. And we
Wow.
to this day we don't know how old he was when he died. He may have been younger than I am now, but he always looked older. And he used to come on stage, and his opening line was, "I know what you're thinking. Fuck, he's old. I told my girlfriend to act her age, so she died." There's comics that never seen Mike McDonald.
Yeah, that's
McDonald used to do 2.5 hours.
crazy.
Um, there was somebody talking about a dog they had, and I said that reminds me of Norm Macdonald's wiener dog with a sweater. These are mean streets for a wiener dog wearing a sweater. And they go, Norm did that. I said that was like one of his first bits to take him, to the promised land.
Yeah.
So that's why I try to teach the history of comedy. Rich Scheidner is doing this great thing every day on his on Facebook. He does the history of comedy, and he says people comics worry about cancel, cancel, cancel. Only comic they really canceled was Lenny Bruce.
They literally
Everybody
put
else
him
got in
in
trouble.
jail.
Yeah, and he didn't and they took away his cabaret license. But everybody else wound up making money from the publicity. Granted, Louis C.K. doesn't have TV and like he used to be, but he still sells out where he plays
Yeah, he still has a fan base.
in his fan base, and then he'll still put out a special, and then you can only get it if you subscribe directly through him. So that eliminates the middleman. So he's not trying to he's not worried that the guy that owns the gas station is going to find out that what he said, what he used to do.
Yeah.
Um, you know, the guy that was Kramer, he kind of walked away from stand up, but he still gets his royalties because they never stopped playing the reruns of Seinfeld.
Hmm.
But
Oh
them
yeah, he's
Cosby kids ain't getting any royalties.
no, no, not at all. Not at all. That's all going to
Theo, I'm
commissary.
sorry that I don't have any money to give you. You should have saved it when it was coming in.
Oh, too funny. Another question I want to ask you was there any comics that came through your Nubian Night Showcase where you're like, oh, this person is gonna be huge, and then they did. They went on to do like incredible things.
Well, I mean, I had Kevin Hart when he was very young, when he's just known as Little Kev, and
Yeah.
he kind of had that same energy. What was the kid that did the movie with the kung fu movies? Chris Tucker. He kind of had that Chris Tucker energy, and then
Right.
Chris
He
Tucker kind of
totally
got,
did.
and then Chris Tucker kind of got religious and stepped aside and went off in different ways. So here you get this short, fiery little firecracker black guy that speaks at a mile a minute,
Huh.
and they say, "Well, gee, if Chris Tucker don't want to work, here's something for Chris Tucker." And they just go, "This is what here you are." And I
Right.
mean, Kevin was always a very hardworking comic, and he goes, "I got some ideas of my own." So, away from there he went. So
Yeah.
I had him a couple of times. And when I had the TV show After Hours, he came up and did it, and I believe that may have been one of his first television spots. We also had Leslie Jones come and do stand up on After Hours, and she did sketch for the first time on my show.
Cool.
So, and she's been huge. But there's also comics that I thought were going to be huge that never quite did get their desserts. I always thought Greg Morton, who's an enormous talent, I always thought he was going to get bigger. And I could always say, well, I didn't. Well, you were dirty and you were aggressive and you did this but Morton didn't have any of those scandals. He didn't use any obscene language. He was just, excuse me, 150% pure joy, entertainment, happiness, good time. Greg
Wow.
Morton wins the audience before he even walks on that stage. Last time I worked with him, he came out doing Miley Cyrus's I think it was Wrecking Ball, and he came in from the back of the club, and he had like the short dress on and the big foam finger, and he came out with the music blasting, doing his takeoff. He's very physical, and his takeoff of Miley, and the place is going crazy before he even steps foot on the stage.
Wow.
The room is his for the rest of the night, and he
Yeah,
hasn't stepped on the stage and opened up his bag of tricks yet.
that's crazy. Well, let's
You
hope
know,
he blows up from this podcast.
well, he
The
was
more
a
we talk about
finalist.
these people, yeah.
He was one of the finalists in America's Got Talent
Oh, well, there you
a
go.
couple of years ago. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
and he was
this industry's so weird, isn't it? Like you
and
could
like
do
he's a
something like
walking,
that.
leaving, breathing cartoon.
Yeah. Like
He'll
so
do all
much
this.
talent. Oh man. I
Yeah,
know who you're talking about now. Yeah, yeah.
I know guys have done 5 Tonight Show appearances and they're still slugging it out.
That's crazy. It's like you just have to, I don't know, get on the Call Her Daddy podcast or have
Well,
a TikTok that goes viral.
a lot of this is before any of that happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Then
It's good though that there's more ways for it to happen, more
when
ways for
Judy
people to be
Tenuta
seen.
died, and she was brilliant. Before she died, she was doing like $300 pop it and do this bar for 20-minute gigs in L.A.
Mm,
And at one point, you couldn't turn on your TV and not see her.
wow.
Emo Phillips. But then guys like Carrot Top, they're doing residence in Las Vegas, making tons of money all the time. So there is no rhyme or reason to this business.
Yeah, no, it's very random. That's kind of part of the fun of it, though, too.
It's not true.
Um, it's so much fun. It's so much fun, the
Not true.
randomness of it. Kenny, there's one question that I always end the podcast with and ask all my guests. Um, one before I get into that, what was your one word? Remember I brought up the one word.
And this is the word that describes me.
Yeah, it can describe you or something that you care about or something that you think about constantly. It doesn't have to be necessarily describing you. I just find it makes it more personal.
I like two words. I like fabulous
Fabulous.
because life's too short not to be fabulous, and tenacious.
I like going.
Tenacious is when you watch these hockey fights and the guy goes down and he gets back up and still wins.
It's a good metaphor for life. I like fabulous though, because you're fabulous, Kenny Robinson.
Well, I added that because it was during the same time as Marvelous Marvin Hagler and the Fabulous Thunderbirds, and I had these other comics are always going on about Kenny's so dirty, he's this, he's that, and I had this attitude. But well, can you follow me?
Yeah.
I said, well, no, you can't. And I said, because I listen to Fabulous Thunderbirds. I said, well, and you are the fabulous Kenny Robinson. So I added fabulous to my name and to my 8x10,
Yeah.
basically to poke a stick at my haters.
I love that.
And then there was a while where I was just the fab. I was even thinking on getting license plates to just say the fab.
That'd
And
be
then
cool.
I realized that the fab was a real asshole. And so I got married the first time because that was the only way I could think of killing the fab. And the
Okay.
fab didn't die. He just got wounded and limped quite a bit after that. But this character of drinking on stage and having the parties in my hotel room afterwards, and then trying to do see if I can go do a 2 hour long show every Saturday night. That was kind of like, and the staff would go, "We want to go home." And I remember Mark Breslin said to me, if John Paul Sartre came back, there wouldn't be anything he had to say that was worth listening to for 2 hours. I
Classic
said,
Breslin.
and I said, but
Uh,
did John Paul Sartre ever put a big girl's head in a window, close it, and then have his way from behind? No, I don't think JP Sartre ever had it like that. So, so, so there's
uh,
a reason why the Fabulous had to die.
yeah.
But
Okay.
even before that, the nickname I had was the Raging Bull of comedy. And
Yeah.
that was because I kept throwing hard shots. Some shots, sometimes my MO was for each tagline to be more brutal than the previous one. And I
Yeah.
still love to hear brutal lines.
Isn't it the best? Where you
Oh,
just go, oh, there's that laugh where you know you shouldn't be laughing at it.
I think that boy Hunter Collins may be one of the most brutal punchers around.
Oh man, yes. Yeah,
And
100%.
Tyler Morrison is
Yeah.
another brutal, do Rocky beating on a side of meat with your ribs kind of performer.
That photo is perfect of him at Yucks and the lady in the front row to his left is giving him the finger. As
Oh,
he's
okay. But I mean, those are two guys that,
it's so
they
great.
throw them heavy shots.
Yeah, yeah. But they're good, they're talented, so it's the undeniable factor of like the wording is tough, but hey, it made me laugh or it made the people around me laugh at least. I need to respect that.
Yeah, and they may not get to do such and such festival because they're brutal. But so
You gotta do the brutal show. Okay, now the final question of the episode. The question is essentially what advice would you give to your younger self? But I want you to really think of you at 15 years old. So Kenny at 15, where you are at this time, and the phone rings and it's you now on the other end, and you can give your younger self a piece of advice. It's not going to change your life whatsoever. Your life is already set in motion. But what do you say to your 15-year-old self?
I would say explore all facets of the art form that you love and that you want to dedicate your life to. If you've got corporate material or cleaner material, it doesn't make you lame. And make sure you've got deep pockets of material because you'll never have enough material. And perfect example, a lot of people thought I was just a dirty comic. And then Andy Nullman of JFL was one of the first guys that said, no, you got political, you've got social commentary, you've got topical. So then I went on this crusade of like just doing political, and I was boring some of my old dirty fans.
Mm,
And then afterwards I went political or dirty, either way, I'll beat your ass.
yeah.
So then I'm going, and maybe if it's what first got me doing stand-up was my love of impressions. So I kind of go, maybe I should have done more impressions instead of abandoning them. Because
Hmm.
after my third time going on stage, I said, well, you can only do Edward G. Robinson and Wolfman Jack how many more times? So I would have been a hack. So I never thought that someday there'd be a Jack Nicholson to learn, or all these other great actors that there are that do. That's why I love impressionists.
Oh yeah, yeah. And it's so
And when I
fun when
used
you can nail it. It's so
when I
fun.
used to get when I used to have 55 people walking out of a club in Halifax,
Yeah.
just because I said they were the Mississippi of Canada, um, because they had racial snowball wars there, right?
Oh Jesus.
So just because I went after all that stuff, and then I go back to my room and I cry, and I go, man, ain't nobody ever walk out on impressionists. Nobody ever gets mad at an impressionist. And I said, why do you stick with impressions? Then I went to Hawaii once, and I was in Honolulu, and there's Honolulu Comedy Club, and there's a comic that they said he was voted the Las Vegas Entertainer of the Year. And it depends what magazine. So I went to see him, and guess what? He was an impressionist, and he was smooth, big Neil Diamond hair, and
Yeah.
you know. And guess who walked out on an impressionist? This guy.
You're like, fuck this.
I'm going. I'm going. No, this is not what I want it to be. This is
Yeah.
not what. This is not the road I should have took.
No.
And I go, well, he's playing Hawaii, and you're just here to dry out from women and booze and everything else that you're trying to get away from. And I go, yeah, well, So yeah, I always tell the comics, write, and you never have enough material, and you don't want to just lean so heavy on the stuff that won't get you booked.
Right.
Because for 35 years now, 40 years, I know from the second week of November to the first week of January that clubs aren't going to book me because these asshole companies have their Christmas parties at the club, and
Right.
all of a sudden I'm not a pro. And then it went from just during Christmas period time to like never. You know,
Wow.
I'm the onlyest comic with a special that works as little as I do.
You should be selling. This is why I keep advocating too for like we have social media. We can blow people up within this country. And if more people feel like they can, you know, be part of a star system or some recognizable like
Well, Canada didn't.
entertainment
We
in
didn't want to
Canada.
have a star system here.
No, but it needs to happen, is what I'm
I
saying.
mean, we liked Anne Murray,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, but
I
Anne
love Anne
Murray could,
Murray.
she went
Shania
to Club
Twain.
54, but she
Yeah.
behaved.
Yeah. She's a good Canadian
Never.
girl.
Anne Murray didn't go adopt a bunch of multicultural children,
No.
and she never put out a book of the snowbird's beaver. I mean, she never did Madonna stuff, and
Yeah.
that was fine. And then we liked the Guess Who as long as Burton only wanted to wear a hockey jersey on stage. And Gordon Lightfoot, hey, but could he dance with Bob Dylan? He had the respect of Bob Dylan, but as long as he stayed up there around Peterborough, we were okay with him. We don't like
Yeah.
anything. We don't like anything too big. We don't like anything too fabulous. We don't like anything that's too garish or obnoxious.
Yeah. I feel
That's
like
just
we
our
need it.
that's just our nature.
Yeah, I suppose.
We're humble because we got the arrogant asshole beneath us, and then we broke. We were released by the cultural superior of Great Britain. So we've
Yeah,
got
we
two
have that
levels
history.
of things where we're just kind of, well, we did okay.
Yeah,
We did okay.
totally.
We're
We're
not
doing all
bad.
right. It's all right. We
Yeah, my
got
socks are warm. There's no holes in the
yeah.
toes. I'm good.
Yeah, you got a documentary on Crave that people can check out.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna share your Instagram here. It's Fabulous Kenny Robinson for everybody listening. Go give him a follow, send him a message, tell him you enjoyed this podcast, and go to Crave and watch People of Comedy. And I think if you are an American viewer, it would probably be available on what's the American equivalent to this? HBO? Or is it
I don't think it's on
exclusively?
HBO.
It's probably
I think maybe
exclusively on
Amazon
Crave.
or something. I
Okay,
don't. I
maybe
don't.
Amazon.
I don't know what there is, but I'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Prime. I think it
Either
might be
way,
Prime.
change your VPN to Canada and then you can get Crave. And KennyRobinson.com for more info and to buy your CDs, whatever
And
else they
we
want to
do the
buy.
Nubian shows the last Sunday of every month.
So get your tickets to that at Yuck Yucks downtown Toronto. Hopefully there's some
Absolutely.
Toronto people listening and we can send them your way.
Hope so. Anyway, thank you very much. It's been a
Thanks so
pleasure.
much, man. Yeah, it was great chatting with you. I hope you have a great
You
rest of
take
your
care.
day. All right, see
You
you,
too.
Kenny.
Take care.